We are about to get started. Before we do, has anybody seen a lost phone or found a lost cell phone? If you have, or if you do see one, you can talk to the lady in the back with her arm raised, Sasha Leggett, or anybody else that looks official around here. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad that you were all able to join us tonight for our Women's History Month panel, Reversing Progress, the Fight for Women, Race, and Inclusion. And if you're anything like me or have an algorithm similar to mine, you've been seeing all week this headline, top officials accidentally share war plans in a group chat with a journalist. Yes, a journalist. Now, I'm not here to rehash the national security implications. Plenty of folks have already done that. All I'm here to say is that we're having this conversation at the same time that we're hearing for rollbacks to DEI in the name of restoring competence. Make that make sense, y'all. But because of what competence means, I think we all know that scrapping DEI is not the answer. So that's why we're here tonight, to push past the headlines and the sound bites and to get to the heart of what's really going on here. The attacks on DEI aren't just theoretical. They're showing up in our classrooms, in our workplaces, and in the courtroom. And the impact on women, especially women of color, is real. So we brought together tonight an incredible panel of women who are experts in labor, higher education, and in the legal landscape to help us unpack the things that are happening right now and exactly where we stand. But before we do that, it's my pleasure to welcome Commissioner Rodney Ellis to introduce our moderator for tonight.
Thank you all, and thank you so much for that kind round of applause, and thank you all for being here. We got a great crowd tonight. I'm impressed that we had an event here this morning. We had an overflow crowd, and now we have an overflow crowd this evening. And the staff, give them a warm round of applause because they had an event this morning, and when that event ended, they changed the room. I went to make a few stops, and I came back, and I got here, and this was a totally different room. But they do a great. Sasha Leggett, wave your hand, and she'll introduce her entire team. We'll give her a round of applause, but they do a great job. That's not me, is it? I want to thank you for joining us to celebrate. You got it? I love that ring. I love that ring. I thought it was mine. That's all right. You get it there. That's all right. Oh, that's the one we're looking for. Let me tell you. It's Women's History Month. We found the phone. I want to thank you for joining us here to celebrate Women's History Month and to engage in a vital conversation, and also to make sure you don't lose your phone while you're here. Across the nation, as she said, there's a coordinated attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's underway at this very moment, fueled by a refusal on the federal level to accept that inequality is real. It does exist, even in the Lone Star State of Texas. Here in Texas, in 2025, they've intensified their efforts, pushing more laws to restrict DEI in schools and workplaces, even dictating how local governments can serve our residents. These attacks are a direct attempt to preserve a power structure in danger of losing its dominance. Tonight, we have an exceptional panel. Sherelle Lott from the ACLU, fighting these attacks in court. Give her a warm round of applause. I'm not going to make you stand up that long. You can ease up so they know who you are, by the way. Give her another warm round of applause. And you can come up. And the next one we have is Dr. Felicia Harris, an academic championing equality in education. Give her a warm round of applause. Elsa Flores, my leader, the president of SEIU Texas, mobilizing workers at the grassroots level, hopefully about to celebrate a big success from our advocacy work at Commissioner's Court this week, we hope. Guiding our discussion is Nicole. There is a slight resemblance, but I'll make no reference to that. Nicole is an award-winning journalist, author, and filmmaker. As the first digital anchor for PBS NewsHour's Nightly News, the creator of the Washington Post's original documentary series, Should I Freeze My Eggs? Her daddy learned more than he thought he could have learned by watching that series. I'm a much more educated father and human being now. She also is a co-creator of the Washington Post's most viewed series in the women's vertical, The New Normal. Nicole has consistently brought important stories to the forefront. Her accolades include a DigiDay Publishers Award and an Edward R. Morrow Award, Webby Awards, Shorty Awards, National Magazine Awards, and a National Emmy Award nomination for Outstanding Breaking News. She's a proud Afro-Texan and founder of Houston's More to the Story Productions, and we're privileged to have my daughter to moderate the program tonight. Would you please welcome me and joining the stage, Nicole Ellis. And if you hadn't noticed what's in your seat, it's her book. And she signed it, I didn't sign it. And it's a point of personal privilege, her mother and I are so proud that she is her own person. Thank you.
Thanks, Dad. Love you. How is everybody tonight? Happy Women's History Month. So I want to give you a little bit more context about the incredible women that I'm going to talk to today and that we're all going to engage with today. So let's start with Dr. Harris. She is both a scholar, well, not both, she got 11 titles. Scholar, author, associate professor of communications at University of Houston downtown, and vice chair of Precinct 1's Women's Commission. She was also the associate director of UHD's now defunct Center for Critical Race Studies. Now, Dr. Harris's expertise and the scope of her work and focus is diversity and culture and representation and the implications that has on our communities on a broad level, whether it's in the executive, with executives, on a grassroots level, and everywhere in between. So we're really excited to have you. Elsa. Elsa, my dad is accurate, fighter, champion, warrior, and president of the Texas Service Employees International Union. She's also the vice president, or the international vice president of the SEIU, and the first woman appointed to the NRG Stadium Board of Directors. Under Elsa's leadership, the Texas SEIU more than doubled its membership and won the biggest raises for janitors in the history of SEIU Texas. She's been in the game for over 25 years and is one of the biggest warriors and champions across the board. Cheryl Lett. She is a legal fellow and attorney for the ACLU in Texas. Her research on underreported incidents of police brutality against Black women was published by the UCLA's Journal of UCLA's Gender and Law Journal. She served on a myriad of roles at the New Orleans Parish Criminal District Court, the Orleans Public Defender's Office, Loyola's Youth Justice Clinic, and was an aide to the Honorable Mandy Campbell in the Orleans Parish Criminal District Court. So I want to start off with our scholar and, both the ivory tower and the grassroots. what is diversity? I feel like it's a word that's been thrown around a bit. You were educating me earlier about how it's a noun, but there's a lot more to it. So can you explain to us what diversity really means?
On already. Yeah, and I knew the question was coming, but I still want to roll my eyes in answering that. I guess for a show of hands, how many of you all feel like you know the definition of diversity? Okay, see, okay. The real one, not the one that just came out in the past year. I probably should have started with that. So it's simple, right? Diversity just means the presence of difference. That is, I mean, we could literally stop right there. It is not that complicated. It is the presence of difference. But what we are experiencing right now is something that I was taught as an English major, is that language is alive and it can evolve, and people can decide that they want to ascribe different meanings to things. And so within the past 2 to 3 years, we've seen this starting with critical race theory, which hopefully we don't have to get into that tonight. Critical race theory, diversity, woke, right? There's this dominant class that decides, well, we want to just put a different definition to that. And who knows what they're defining it as. I think when I hear some folks say the word diversity now, that they're just talking about Black folks, women, people of color, people with disabilities, the LGBTQ community. But that's not what it is, right? You could have a room full of white people and it can be diverse because it's different. If there's a woman there, a man there, a trans person, someone from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic status, that's a diverse group, right? So diversity is a noun. It's not supposed to be used to describe individual people.
So I kind of want to push a little bit more on that, because earlier you told me that one person fundamentally cannot be diverse. So what does the way you just described diversity mean in the sense of what we're talking about now when it comes to diversity, and honestly, what DEI has been in most corporate spaces or educational institutions? Like, what are we talking about, and what does it what does it actually mean, and how is it sort of conflated the perplexity of context, as you would put it?
So what we used to be talking about, again, is the presence of difference and recognizing that we're all better together and that we're all stronger when we have diverse perspectives at the table. When I was telling her earlier that one person cannot be diverse, it was always a red flag for me at, the university when someone says, oh, we need a diverse candidate, because that lets me know that your baseline for all candidates is probably going to be a cis white man and that you want someone other than that, right? But in reality, a white man would fall into the overall diversity of the university. And so when we were doing all of these DEI trainings and, conversations, what we were trying to do is say we're all better when we're here together, but we also have to take care of one another, right? We also have to be attuned to what those differences mean and how we work together and how we listen to one another. And do you feel included, which gets us over to inclusion, and are you treated fairly and equally, which moves us into equity, right? That's what we were trying to do. We were just trying to have everyone participate and move organizations forward so that we can be more successful. And I don't want to preview the whole conversation, but it works.
Okay, so deductive reasoning would tell us that the way we use diversity now is code. And you gave us a sense of like what you see it as coded for, but Elsa, I kind of want you to piggyback on that. And Sherelle, what does diversity mean in this conversation so that we can all have a baseline for where we're going?
So for me, or at least in the labor movement, I think, first of all, diversity for us is not a bad word, right? Diversity isn't a bad word, because what it really means for us in the labor movement is the ability to make sure that we are all included in being able to be lifted up economically, if necessary, right? And have one strong voice to be able to talk across the table with people of power. And so, for something to think about right now, and the way that we're looking at things is who benefits by changing the meaning of what diversity is. And the commissioner actually talked a little bit about that earlier when he said that people in power who now have fear of losing that power as a result of it has now changed the meaning of what diversity is, because either economically it's not beneficial for them to have everyone be included and everyone at the table, because they do not want to make sure that people who normally don't get an opportunity to have a better education or be able to attend a college of their choosing have an opportunity to do so, so they continue to be the privileged class. And I will say, and I think it's okay for me to say, is think about who's in power now, right? And who is really kind of sending those messages. Usually powerful 1% men, the 99% men who have money. And I would go back to say it's white men in power who right now are fearing that they're losing that power. And so as a result of that, we now have the attacks into what we call DEI and making sure that people with that are different, because either you're a woman, you're Black, you are an LGBTQ, or you're someone with a disability, now are being excluded from being able to benefit in this country.
Thank you. Now, Sherelle, and am I pronouncing your name right? Okay. Sherelle, what does the ACLU or Texas ACLU see as kind of the big obstacle here and the scope of what we're talking about when we talk about diversity?
So the ACLU of Texas generally has a mission that we are working towards equality for all Texans, period. That means people with disabilities, that means Black people, that means undocumented people, that means everyone in the state of Texas, even those who have different beliefs than us, because that's what everyone means. That is diversity. I think a lot of people on the opposing side to our point of view believe that they are not affected by diversity, equity, and inclusion, but they don't realize that they are fighting against their own interests. For instance, at the ACLU of Texas, we fight for freedom of speech. Unfortunately, that includes your neighbor's freedom to be racist to you in public. Unfortunately, things like that are protected by the Constitution, and as attorneys, it is our job to uphold the Constitution. For some reason, a lot of attorneys on the opposing side of this conversation have decided that they want to change what diversity, equity, and inclusion mean, as my co-panelists have explained. And they are not realizing that that change in definition is detrimental to their purpose, their movement, the people that are protecting their literal right to protest and advocate for the nonsense that they are protesting and advocating for. We are doing so under the Constitution. And dismantling that structure is only going to cause chaos on every end.
Elsa, so statistically, we know that women, people of color, people with disabilities, you name it, intersectional, diverse people make less, struggle at work, and require and need advocates in order to be able to be treated equally. You already had that on your plate. So where does the current landscape, both locally and nationally, where did you start, and how do the things that are happening affect how you move forward, or some of the challenges that you now have to navigate?
I think to start with, I would say it was already hard enough in a place like Texas that's considered right to work to be able to organize workers to have a voice in the workplace, right? It's the laws, frankly, are not conducive to do that. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that the elected officials at the state level, sometimes I would say a lot of them Republicans, are very proud to say that Texas is a pro-business place, and they say it very proudly. What does that mean? It means that business usually get the upper hand. Workers have to fight for every little thing that they get. So in the labor movement, one of the things that we have to make sure that we do now is, one, we have to go to elected officials in places where we do have elected officials who want to do the right thing and organize to bring to their attention the disparities that we have for workers, right? And we do talk about all workers. We can't go and say we only want it for this group or that group, just because. We have to do it for all workers. And so, Commissioner, you mentioned that we're hopefully going to have a victory at the county to actually raise wages for some of the folks who have been left behind and made the least amount of money at the county level. And if all goes well, we're actually going to have a bill that's not just going to impact the members of my union, but every worker, whether they have a union or they don't have a union, will be able to benefit to that. So that's a way that we make sure that we highlight. And a lot of times we highlight it by talking about who's being left behind, right? Those are the jobs that they do, right? The women, Black people, brown people, people with disabilities. Those are the ones that usually end up at the lower end of the pay scale. So we do that through that way. But another way, and I think this is going to be some of the stuff that we're going to have to do, because it's getting harder for commissioners, for elected officials to do stuff without being penalized for doing the right thing, is we're going to have to do it through the collective bargaining agreement, which means that we're going to have to be organizing more than ever, making sure that people have the ability to join a union, because that will be one of the main ways that people are going to be able to sit across the table and say, no, women in my job class are not getting paid equally to what a man gets paid. We already had a huge discrepancy. I can only imagine what the discrepancy will be now that employers don't feel they have to do the right thing, that there's no one policing them. And then I just want to highlight something that I think is really key. At the national level, we just had the Department of Education basically eliminated. What does that mean? Think about, what did they actually police, right? They make sure that there was money going into underserved communities for education. They make sure that people with disabilities got money so that they could be educated in the school, just as they should, right? But now that whole department is gone, and I think that's just a consequence again on this DEI narrative that they have, where they're getting rid of any organization that is going to change the status quo.
Thank you. Felicia, so as Elsa mentioned, there could be a really serious uphill battle just because you're diverse and applying for a job. So can you tell us a little bit about, kind of strategies to navigate that, or how people can still advocate for themselves or tackle some of those insecurities or fears when you have to submit an application and you don't know how it's going to turn out?
Yeah, so again, when we say you're diverse applying for a job, what we mean is you find yourself being a Black person, a woman, someone who has a disability, and so on and so forth. And I think, unfortunately, to be honest with you, there's little you can do from the outside in. I think about my role as someone who sat on search committees and the work that we were doing before to make sure that we were bringing in qualified candidates. And it was really an intentional practice, but it has to come from the inside, and you have to have those advocates, just like she was saying. And I do want to make a point that this is not to restore meritocracy. I'm jumping around, but I just want to make that point, because if we really wanted to go that far, we would be instituting policies and practices where we removed all, gender identifying labels, all race and ethnic. We would be making it a blank slate across the board. And I guarantee you, if you held my CV up to some of the people who graduated with me from the University of Georgia and took off all of those identifying labels, you would see that I blow people out of the water, right? Yeah. We know, because we know, and I only say that because we know what is a colloquial in our community is you have to work twice as hard, you have to be twice as fast, you have to do all of these things. So this is not an issue of someone on the outside not being qualified to get the job. There's not much more that you can do if you're already excellent for a system that does not want you to be on the inside, right? And so I think for us, what it looks like is we have to continuously be creative, be innovative, reimagine those hiring practices, something that the reason why SB 17 banned different things like diversity statements and all of those, because of the work, it was working, right? Being able to say, reimagine what is the criteria that makes you a qualified candidate, and having a more expansive view in what we're looking for, so that when we line up candidates, we can say, I can really see that this person is the best person for the job, which is what we were always trying to do. And in fact, a lot of these DEI strategies that the old version, the old definition of DEI were put into place because the meritocracy lie was not working. It just wasn't working.
Go off, girl.
Sorry to my UGA colleagues.
It's all good. It's all good. Which brings us to you, Sherelle. What's on your plate, girl? What's going on with ACLU Texas?
I get nervous every time somebody asks me that. So I will say on a national level, the ACLU, which is different from the ACLU of Texas, by the way, the ACLU on a national level is fighting back against the Donald Trump executive orders that are banning or trying to ban DEI in every space. So right now in Texas, since 2023, we have been advocating against the implementation of SB 17, which is a law that was passed and went into effect last January that requires colleges and universities to stop giving funds and resources to anything on their campus, frankly, that that promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion. So far, this has not directly touched curriculum, I don't think.
It's on the way.
We'll get to that. We'll get to Felicia.
I hope it doesn't, but it might. And what we're doing right now is really just, for one, working at the legislature. We are talking to legislators. We are trying to let them know that what they're planning to do next is unconstitutional. There are, I think there's more than one anti-DEI bill that's being proposed right now and is going through the motions. And unfortunately, it's an uphill battle trying to get these newly elected senators specifically to see reason. We tell them that things are unconstitutional and they don't care. They do it anyway. They make us sue them. That is actually what they are trying to do because they realize that the courts are very conservative right now. So they want us to sue them. They want to get a good judgment that will dismantle the generations of work that activists and attorneys have been building since we got here. And it's been a uphill battle and a very frustrating time since last year. So, yeah.
So it's safe to say that there have been some tectonic fissures in how you navigate your work and calculate when's a good time to sue versus advocate. So you are in the business of collecting data. I'm curious to hear, tell me a little bit about specifically some of the effects that you've seen on college campuses, among other places.
Yeah, we've specifically gotten a lot of reports from the University of Texas, which if you guys have been paying attention to the news, students have been very active at UT because UT has traditionally been a more progressive campus for students. So a lot of students have been outspoken, speaking to media and speaking to us. One thing that we saw at the onset of SB 17 implementation, the Multicultural Center at UT was completely shut down. Faculty that work there were removed. The student organizations that operated out of that center lost their funding. There was also a women's center that was disbanded. The people that worked there were also fired, and the student groups that operated out of those operated in that center were also disbanded. They lost their funding. They lost their space to meet. We've also been hearing that some D9 organizations were affected on other campuses, where they were not able to meet on campus anymore for just their regular meetings. So it has had a very dramatic effect on student life, as well as what faculty and staff are able to do in their roles. So with that, faculty and staff have different rights when they are working for the state, and those rights are limited in the free speech space. So whereas students have the right to say whatever they want on campus, so long as it's not breaking any crazy rules, professors, faculty, and staff, they have certain guidelines that they have to abide by if they want to keep their jobs. And unfortunately, this is the reality that we live in, and this is kind of the battle we're facing right now.
Okay, so why can't a sorority meet on campus, but chess club, or my dad's favorite, debate team can? Like, what's the difference here?
Well, because usually,
Like,
all
they're
the-
both diverse, right?
Yeah.
Like, diversity is,
For
I love
sure.
chess, or I love to argue with my daughter.
For sure. For sure. But I think the big difference here is the chess team's purpose is not to promote diversity, equity, or inclusion. It's just to give people that like chess a nice space to meet and do that. So whereas our organizations that have been founded for a specific purpose to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to uplift women and uplift men that come from minority backgrounds, we are being targeted by those rules.
So it kind of comes back to this question of what diversity actually is, because what you just described to me, at least sounds to me like two different types of diversity. And so I kind of want to bring that back to you, Felicia, of, can you untangle this for us?
I can't. let me check with university communications first. No, see what I'm allowed to say. I can't untangle it because we're not in a realm of like reality and real meaning. We're trying to decipher what those with opposing views are sending out as dog whistles, and we're not dogs. So we don't really know what, and again, I know what I think of, right? I think of, oh, we were talking about protected classes and there's still veteran services on campus, but now services for women, services for minorities no longer exist. And so we continuously see this play out, even with some of the recent chaotic executive orders implementing, rescinding. Oh, we didn't realize who all we were actually impacting, but let me bring it right back one time so I can like make sure this group is protected, because I didn't really mean them. I actually just meant Black people. I actually just meant people who are working for low wages. I actually only meant, right? So they're not saying that, but in practice, we see that the definition is really being only applied in really particular contexts that benefit, again, this class of people who are at risk of losing their powers.
Okay, so diversity is this amorphous blob. And
Woke, CRT, all of them. They just mean, they don't really mean things. Like,
right.
They mean racist things, sexist things that I can't pinpoint because I don't think like that.
So I want to ask you, Elsa, because it's something that's so broad and something that can be selectively applied, what is the danger of that level of exposure? If arguably, like uplifting, liking pink nail polish can be something that can be an underrepresented group or a specific group that you don't have to hire, what is the danger of the scope of the word diversity being applied and sort of earmarked or tagged as something to avoid or dismantle?
I think the immediate danger is that all the work that had been done over the years by, people who we are proud to talk about right now, civil rights leaders, right, immigrant leaders, and people who fought so hard and many of them gave their lives to make improvements for all of these communities that we just talked about. It's rolling back. It's rolling back to the time when we didn't have the right to vote as women. It's rolling back to, where people were being excluded just because of the way they look or the religion that they have. And, I don't just want to say it's rolling back, because I think it is up to us to decide that we're not going to let it happen. We cannot let hundreds and hundreds of years of fighting and getting to where we are today, which is still not enough, go back just because a few people decided to do so. And so, I say this to our members all the time, and, and I don't exclude anybody on it. I don't exclude white people, because at the end of the day, I don't think they realize that all of this impacts them too, in many different ways economically, because if I don't do well, they don't do well either, right? So I try to make sure that they understand that if we all do well together, then we can all come up together, right? And so I would urge all of us to actually think about, and we got to be bold in the actions that we take, and we got to be innovative in the actions that we take, and we can't take no for an answer, and we got to say, no, I don't want you to tell me why I can't do it. I want you to work with me and figure out how we're going to do it, and do whatever it takes to make sure that we're able to stop this sort of attacks into our communities and the things that we fought so hard for.
Alicia, I kind of want to get it, girl. I kind of want to look at this from the perspective of being selective about what diversity means, when anything can mean diversity. So how exposed are we as people, whether we're white, black, anywhere, how exposed are we to being conflicted out of whatever this means, right? We fought a lot for equity and equitability for where we are, but there's a whole lot on the table when it comes to the term diversity. So how exposed are we as a country really to the narrowing of that definition?
I mean, I think you can look at this in an optimistic way and in a pessimistic way. I think we can.
I'm looking for the pessimistic.
Oh, okay, all right. Like trying to uplift a little bit. I mean, we're exposed. Like, there's great risk here. There's no way to sugarcoat that. Like, there is exposure tied to, and this is where I was going with the optimistic, tied to some of these institutions. Well, one of the words I think they want to ban is we talk about things that are systemic. This is going into critical work, but we ain't gonna go into CRT. When we talk about things that are systemic and structural, that means that they are built into the structures and the systems that we've come to depend on. There is, however, an opportunity to move outside of those structures, right? To work outside of those systems, to be really imaginative, to figure out what comes next in the next iteration of progress. So I know it's called reversing progress, and we would like there's no such thing for me as like really rolling back, right? These things happen. We know we've made these advances in society. We know what we've earned. It's kind of like, if you've ever been on a weight loss journey, one of the things I like to hold on to, you gain weight, you lose weight, you gain weight, you lose weight. And they say, well, when you have to start over again, you're not starting over from scratch because you've already done it. The first time you had to lose that 10 pounds, it was hard. But when you go back the second time, you're like, okay, I know what I'm in for. I know what I'm up against. I know what the pitfalls are. I know how I ended up getting off track. I know these things. So their thwarting progress is really like putting a hurdle in front of us because we were moving the needle. Like, it was working, and that is the threat. And so, yes, right now, there is inherent exposure of me losing my job, right? Not being able to teach the courses that I love, not being able to implement policies through commissioner's court and through, the state, federal government or whatever the case may be. But there is an opportunity to say, what else? What else can we do, right? What are the other systems, structures that we can now build outside of depending on these structures that we just kind of took for granted that they will always, we made the evidence and they wouldn't take it away from us, but that's where we are.
Cheryl, I want to ask, you got a lot on your plate, but how are you all navigating being strategic here, right? You may face judges who feel a different way about what you are putting before them, and it requires intention to decide when you pursue litigation, when you don't, and what you do in between that time. So tell us a little bit about the strategy that's going into the ACLU's work on this.
Yeah, so the ACLU of Texas has an integrated advocacy structure. So basically, that means we have our legal team, our policy team, our communications team, our development team working together at all times on these issues, trying to figure out what is the best way to go about certain things. So like, for instance, now we're in a legislative session, right? We know that there are anti-DEI bills coming up. So right now, what we're doing on that front is trying to stop that as best we can. And as far as SB 17, right now we're collecting stories. We're hearing from people who have been affected by this. We are collecting those stories in the hopes that maybe one day we'll be able to do something with them. And if we are not doing something with them legally, we will be doing something with them in the media. We'll be doing something with them with our communications team, because we realize that telling people stories is how you get people excited to organize and move the needle forward. As we know, as history has shown us, so much of the advancements that we've made in this country have come from the work of activists and organizers, not necessarily people in the courtroom. So we know that, and we try to use that to our advantage.
Thank you. So,
On the narrative side, I'm sorry, she just said something that I just thought about. Like, one of the biggest things I think that we all are falling into, and whether it is on the DEI or even on the issue of immigration, obviously, right, is that the media and the narrative that the media puts out, because it's continuing to put out the narrative that they have put out about what DEI is and about what immigration is and about what all of this is, sometimes continues to perpetuate the ideas that they have there. So, I want, if anything in this room, is how do we begin to question that narrative in a different way and stop perpetuating that narrative, but put out our own narrative about what it is, like the stuff that we're doing today.
y'all better not kick us out. We're getting to the good stuff.
We stayed our welcome already.
So, two things. Thank you both, because that's an excellent segue. The first is, I love the idea of transferable skills. So it sounds like everyone up here has some insight or some strategy that is a transferable skill for you or for your babies, grandbabies, nieces, nephews to apply as they navigate their trajectory, their future, and for us ourselves. Like, I'm trying to keep my job. I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do next. I'm trying to keep my job. I know he wants to keep his, and everybody else here is trying to figure it out too. So I want to leave you all with that, and also open it up to questions. And in terms of what Elsa and Sherelle were saying, Houston Landing is a partner in this, and they want to hear your stories and they want to hear your story ideas. So please reach out to one of the reporters. They have a booth out there, and they're eager to tell these stories. So please absolutely reach out to them, subscribe, get the QR code. They want to hear from you. And with that, I'd like to open it up to questions. I don't know whose mic we're.
Poor white mothers, they're not going to have anywhere to go to school because it's not going to be funded. But those were what I refer to. I can do the freedom of speech, right? The Trumpeteers. They were all Trump, 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 Trump. Now what do you have to say? Because now you kind of crap out of luck.
I mean, I think, again, I go back to misinformation, the narrative that is being put out and that the media continues to propagate, right? Like if you look at the news, it's every day, it's the same story. And the other side is really good about putting out their narrative and about what they're doing this and making it sound like this is good for you. But when it comes down to it, it's the importance of us being able to talk about what the impact is. It's the only thing that's going to stop them from doing what they're doing right now, right? So like when we talk about the Department of Education, is talking about, hey, I have a son who is autistic, right? And I know what it was like for me as a mother when he was growing up to try to get the services that he needed, right? I know what it was like when I lived in California and what it was like when I came to Texas, and how difficult it was. Because it's sort of like don't ask, don't tell. They won't tell you that the services are there, but if you ask, they have to tell you because there's actually groups that do that and educate our communities to make sure they have it. And so, my job in labor or my job as a parent with other parents was to make sure that I educate the people on what the impact of the certain services that they were trying to take away was and how they impacted my family. And that's regardless on the color of my skin or what language I speak or what religion that I have. Thank you.
I also think when I see and hear those stories of folks like that who are actively working against their own interests, I really wish they would have been in one of my DEI trainings because they would know that this unfair advantage, most of the unfair advantages that they were receiving based on the color of their skin, like they would be able to put that into a larger context. But the reality is some folks would rather be poor than Black. They would rather struggle with access to opportunity than be Black because they know very well what we're up against, right? What we're up against in different groups that are systemically oppressed. And so it's like, if you would have came to a talk, you would have learned a little bit about the advantages you have and what you stand to lose and understanding, where you are in this continuum and that it's not just about race, right? It's also about class. It's also about education. It's also about all of these things that affect you, but they don't know because they didn't have the training and now it's banned. So.
Any more questions?
Which one? She Hi, my name is Dr. Fonda Johnson Gaddy, and I am a counselor at Lone Star College, getting ready to retire. So as I listen to everything that was discussed today, and people have been asking me, what are you going to do when you retire? And so now I see what I'm going to do. Y'all help me to figure it out. But I want to know, all of us that are in the room, including myself, what can I do to be part of the solution? Because even though I'm retiring and I've been there 28 years and I have 38 years of experience, and so I'm retiring, but I don't want to retire to this reality that I realize I have so much experience, knowledge, and wisdom to add to the solutions that need to be had. So that's my question. What can I do as I prepare for retirement? I want to be a part of the solution.
Organize. That's organized. We have to get organized. And that is, one of the few disadvantages of like my career as someone who was a DE advocate for my college, for my university. When they shut me up, everyone else is like, well, what are we gonna do? Like they don't know what it's like. You need to do what you've seen other people do. It's time for you to organize. It's time for you to have those conversations. It's time for you to mobilize your communities, right? It's time to do something and not wait. And this is not a personal attack, but it's time to do something and not continue to wait on that leader, that person who's gonna get you together. Yeah, it's all hands on deck.
Thank you all for firing us up. I think that concludes our time, at least to ask questions formally. We gonna be outside. Don't worry. Well, you can still get your question in. Okay. Okay, it's not up to me, so.
Thank you so much. Please give our panel a round of applause. They were amazing, like so good. So good. Thank you all so much. We have a nice little token of our appreciation for each of you. Come on up here, guys.
Ooh, I love flowers, actually.
Come on, clap them up, clap them up.
So have you all enjoyed this? And keep the blinds up. We're not trying to put them out. Somebody leaned on the shades back there. But look, we hope you've enjoyed it. And Sasha and her team plan on doing something maybe once a month for various groups to come in and have discussions. We're in a very perilous time, so it is hit that button, it goes back up. We've only been in the building a couple of months, so we're learning how it works. But the DEI firm did a hell of a job on the building, didn't they? And Nicole's daddy picked the art. But hey, thank you. We want to give you some flowers while you're here. We appreciate the leadership of all you very influential and powerful women. Thank you. Give them all a round of applause. And we're going to finish the refreshments. You'll get to talk and socialize. That's what this is about. Thank you.